With the whole everything that went on in the last year, I just so happened to have a lot of time to play a lot of games in my backlog. So, needless to say, 2020 was complete trash in the social aspect for me. But still, at the very least I was able to complete many games that I've been meaning to play for years. I wasn't really interested in many of the games that released in 2020 though. I only really got to get all the way through Paper Mario the Origami King, so that's why this video is titled The Best Games That I Played in 2020. Because this would be a super short video if it were the best games that released in 2020 that I played. I mentioned this in my video about rhythm games based off of RPGs, but at the beginning of this year, I finally got into two RPG series that I've been meaning to play for a long time now, Kingdom Hearts and Persona. I'm super glad I started this year off with Kingdom Hearts. It was about time I played a good action RPG. It was a good steal too, because I found all the games that are available on PS4 from local game stores for about the same price as a new game. I probably would have been okay without playing Chain of Memories or watching the cutscenes for 358 Overtune Recoded and just read plot synopses for all of them, but for all the other games from 1 through 3, they were a lot of fun, especially Kingdom Hearts 2 and 3. I even took the time to get the Ultima weapon in all the numbered entries, plus the best armor and accessories you could get for Sora, Donald, and Goofy in Kingdom Hearts 2 and 3. Plus, I started working on the secret bosses and data battles in these games, so I definitely got more than my money's worth on these games. That said, I wouldn't say Kingdom Hearts 2 and 3 are the best RPGs I played this year, and that's because I thought that Persona 3 was phenomenal. Sure, the game definitely has aspects of it that are frustrating to play from a modern perspective. My biggest gripes being not being able to directly control your party members and getting a game over returning you back to the title screen. But I liked how the boss battles were difficult, and I especially liked the story in Persona 3. It was definitely a good gateway into the series, and I'm hopeful that Atlus ends up making a remake of it, or at least a remaster that combines the best parts of FES and Portable. Until then though, I still have to beat Persona 5 Royal, so I guess that can wait. I didn't really play many action or platformers this year that weren't RPGs or Metroidvanias, but there were a few that I did enjoy. I started Bayonetta back in 2019, but I never actually finished it until this year, and then I went on to play Bayonetta 2, and I enjoyed it just as much as the first. Both games still hold up pretty well even today, and definitely a fun, difficult hack and slash series to get into. I'm just hoping that Bayonetta 3 eventually gets more than just a number in a teaser trailer and doesn't suffer from the game killer that is development hell. And on the platformer side, I found Celeste to be an excellently designed indie game. The only time the game ever explicitly forces a tutorial on you is the introduction of the dash, which is a very brief pause where it just tells you how to dash. And after that, it's all just learning mechanics through the gameplay itself rather than forcing tutorials upon you. Of course, not all games are structured in a way that this is possible, but Celeste executed it flawlessly in my opinion. Plus, the game is a nice wholesome story about self-acceptance and the importance of mental health. It's often on sale and also on Xbox Game Pass, plus it can run on a potato, so go and try it out if you have a free afternoon sometime. The COVID pandemic was a good time for multiplayer games you can play online. Granted, both the games I'm mentioning here existed long before the pandemic, but they work well online too. I tried the Quiplash games out with my family and we had a blast with those, even if I wasn't in the same room as them and we were playing it over Discord. Kind of surprised we never actually tried it before this year, but hey, better late than never. I also wanted to mention Rivals of Aether because they just released the definitive edition this year, and all the stuff they added into it was a blast. I bought it back when it was in early access, and while I don't really play it that often, it's still a really fun platform fighter with some interesting mechanics. In my opinion, calling it a Smash clone would be a disservice to the game, and the developers care more about their community and support tournaments of their games so much more than the mega corporation that is Nintendo does, so big props to them. 2020 for me was the year of the Metroidvania for sure. I played a lot of them this last year, and it definitely reaffirmed my love for the genre. Now, I know I might get flamed for this, but I consider Zelda 2 to be a Metroidvania. I know it doesn't have a largely interconnected map like Super Metroid or Symphony of the Night, sure, but neither does Metroid Fusion and neither does Order of Ecclesia. In fact, each area is technically connected to another through the overworld map. So there. Jokes aside, I enjoyed Zelda 2 after applying the redo mod that fixed some of the issues the original had. It's definitely an antiquated game and it was rough to play as a result, but it was still fun, and I enjoyed it a lot more than Zelda 1, which I also beat this year. Kinda makes me sad that Nintendo hasn't considered going the RPG route in Zelda games since, because I think Zelda 2 executed that pretty well. minus the fact that dying made you lose all your experience. I also played Symphony of the Night for the first time this year, my first Metroidvania Castlevania game, and I loved it. Where Zelda 2 did pretty well in, Symphony of the Night excelled in combat, exploration, ability progression, you name it. It's good that I have many other Metroidvania Castlevania games to look forward to, but it's sad that Konami will probably never make another game in the same vein again. That's okay though, because as I covered in my Bloodstained review, Koji Igarashi is back and making both traditional and Metroidvania Castlevanias through the Bloodstained series. And dang, I enjoyed Bloodstained Ritual of the Night as much as I did Symphony of the Night. You can watch that review to get a more in-depth perspective on how I feel about it, but it's super fun. I kind of wish it didn't copy so much from Symphony of the Night, but for a first game in a franchise that they've established now with 2 more games, it's super solid and has me looking forward to what games they'll release in the future. I also wanted to go back and play some of the Metroid games I've never played, because I love Super Metroid, and so I kind of owe it to myself to play the canon version of the first game, as well as the sequel. But I wasn't really a fan of Nintendo's official remake of Metroid 2, based off the little bit I tried off my friend's copy. They absolutely gutted wall jumping as a mechanic compared to Super Metroid and Zero Mission, and the melee mechanic just seemed like a combat gimmick they threw in that didn't add much depth. So when I wanted to try out Metroid 2, I wanted to do it proper and play the amazing fan remake AM2R. This is the only case where I think the Nintendo hire this man meme should have actually applied, because AM2R is extremely quality. It's a damn shame Nintendo sent the cease and desist classic instead. The only issues I had with the game were issues that the original Metroid 2 has, which I think is completely fair for a remake of said game. But mechanically, it was amazing to play, and I recommend playing it for sure, because it's still pretty easy to find the executable with a quick search. So, all in all, though I didn't really play much in the way of new releases this year, I still had a good year in gaming. I didn't have much time to play a lot of video games in college, so the pandemic was a great time to catch up on all the experiences I missed, as well as more retro games that I've been meaning to play for a long time. It showed me that I don't really need the newest games or the newest consoles to have a good gaming experience, which is nice. Still, that's not going to stop me from trying to get a PS5 though.